Well, thank you very much. Oh, you don't need to stand up for me, for Pete's sakes. Look, I'm very happy that I have this opportunity to speak with you tonight, because in the next few days I'm going to be involved in some controversy, and I want to make sure that you get to know my complete position on it, because I'm sure if you read something in a newspaper or whatever, it'll be a clip, and you won't be able to get the full picture of why I've taken certain stands. And so I will just go through a couple of these with you, and then I'll be very happy to open up for whatever questions that you have, and et cetera. I will try to speak directly into this microphone, because someone was saying that they have a little volume problem. I will be on C-SPAN tomorrow, and I will be, for the first time, asked publicly about Edward Snowden, and especially now in relationship to our president canceling a one-to-one session with President Putin because the Russians have given asylum to Edward Snowden. And I have not expressed this before, as I know it's going to be very controversial, but I find no fault in someone who has alerted the American people to an over-surveillance by their government. And this is, I voted against, look, I voted for the first Patriot Act. It was after 9/11, and we were at war. We had 3,000 of our citizens who were murdered in front of us. But the reason I voted for that was that there were sunsets in the first Patriot Act. That meant everything goes, all these new powers we're going to go out of effect after a few years, unless it's renewed, and it has to be renewed specifically, or that goes out of effect. It's not permanent law. Well, and that was actually spearheaded by Dick Armey, who was in the Congress at the time, making sure those provisions were in there. Then, 5 years later, when the Patriot Act came up, our President Bush had taken out most of the sunsets and were making all of those powers permanent law for the United States. And that's why I voted against the Patriot Act when it came back the second and third time. And the third time, they had parts of it that would justify exactly what we're finding out now, which is you have a massive surveillance operation going on, not against bad guys, but against everybody, and all the citizens have to give up our freedom for them to catch the bad guys. Sorry, that does not hold water with me. And and believe me, I am in favor of, once we identify and have a group of people who we know in some way are in touch even with known terrorists, yes, we can follow them at that point. But until that happens, what they want to do, of course, is they want to keep a record of every phone call that you have ever made and will make. Every phone call that you will make will be in a record. That's baloney, that's garbage, that's tyranny, that's totalitarianism. Right in our Constitution it says that we are safe and secure in our records. That's what a record is. It's a record of our communication. And you know, you say, it just says read the Constitution here, you're reading the Constitution, and it's like there's no answer to it. I mean, no, I'm afraid, and I know people are very serious about protecting our country, and they are very serious about it, but they have well-motivated people. Even though someone has good intentions, you know where the path with good intentions leads you. And that's where they're going to lead our country if you let them get away with it. And Snowden, although I'm sure he's not some heroic individual, at least he tipped us off, he tipped the American people off as to what was going on. And so he broke his word, and I think that there's a legitimacy to say he signed a contract when he went to work for this agency, and he should have kept his word. And so he did commit a crime, but it was not treason. He committed the crime of breaking his contract. So maybe now about not talking to Putin because of this. This is as controversial as what you liked it, okay, but that was controversial. This is going to be even more controversial. Let me tell you something. We've got two major enemies that we have to contend with. One is radical Islam that wants to murder us right now. And then, okay, and number two, we've got an emerging China that is out to destroy the United States and dominate the world, or at least half the world. They're doing it, stealing all of our technology. All of these great accomplishments, they say, look at what they're doing up in space now, and wow, incredible. It's not incredible. They've had no R&D costs for anything they've done. None of their manufacturing, none of their aviation or other technological things. It's all based on stolen research and development. Yeah, if we had all of our research and development dollars back, there's a lot of other things we could be doing too. Well, the Chinese, of course, have a belligerent view. They are still the same hardcore communist dictatorship that they ever were. We were told that if we just open up to China, if we just open up to them, that and we invest, give them investment, capital investment, give them our ideas. Let them go to our schools and have their kids educated so they know how to make bombs better, things like that. And if we just do that and show how open we are and how much we've given them, they will be so grateful that they will put aside the gangster regime that they've got, and all the gangsters will turn benevolent and join the Rotary Club. And the theory is the more prosperous you make them and more happy, nice you are to them, the tyrants and the gangsters will become better people. It's the hug a Nazi, make a liberal theory. That's what I call it. And it has not worked. China is emerging as one of a great threat to our national security and to our children's future. So we got radical Islam now at our throats, and we've got, of course, China emerging. Now, what other country is there in the world that may have these two threats as well? Russia. If we are going to emerge 100 years from now or 50 years from now, and we are going to emerge in a position where our freedom is secure and we are not in a precarious, horrible corner that we've been put there, we have to have a whole new world view than what we had during the Cold War. Basically because Europe is going down. Europe can no longer be counted on to step up to the type of challenge that we're talking about. And they have enough internal problems that they threatening them on the inside. They may be a totally changed continent within 20 years, but most importantly, you take all of the weapon systems that our NATO allies help provide us in our great alliance with NATO, does not equal what Russia alone has available. Okay, so who are we going to curry favor with? Now, what we've had now, I am talking to you as someone who has strong Cold War credentials. I mean, I did work with Ronald Reagan, and I was his speechwriter during the time when everybody complained that the speeches were too anti-Soviet. All right? I won't tell you who wrote those speeches, but you can guess. The fact is that the president was very tough on the Soviet Union, and there has been enormous change in what was the Soviet Union and what now is Russia. We need to make Russia our friend. We need to pull them in, but we have had some of my old buddies who can't get over the Cold War. They cannot get over the fact that Putin is not Brezhnev. And they say, well, look at that tough guy. Look at this tough guy. He is a tough guy. Americans like nice people who make strong principled stands. The Russians like tough guys. That's who they elect. And he was elected. There's nobody who can tell me, and I've said this many times, that Putin wouldn't have been elected. Yeah, there's some problems with the campaigns. Like we never have problems with our campaigns. But Putin, no one has said Putin wouldn't get elected. So here he is, and we have people who have done everything they can to demonize him so we can't work with him. I went to Russia, and I don't know if you saw that, with Steven Seagal. And we went there in order to do what? To find out what their intelligence service had given to us about the Boston bombers. Now remember, the guys who murdered our people in Boston at that marathon were originally from Chechnya, which is a Muslim area of Russia that's been in insurgency for 20 years. So we went there to check that out, and we went to a place called Basilin. And Basilin is a school. And there's a school there that was taken over by terrorists in 2004. Then these Muslim terrorists hauled all the kids into the school into an auditorium. The building's all been blown up and everything, but you could see where the auditorium was, and it's been sort of swept out and everything. And they took all of these kids and put them in this auditorium and held them there. And it was a very hot day, and they planted explosives all over the auditorium. And as the kids were not allowed to even get up and go to the bathroom, I don't know if you have children, you can imagine, parents start gathering outside, hearing their kids crying, and they couldn't send water in, and they blew them up. 140 kids blown to hell, and they still have little water that they bring them in there and put it, the parents remembering their kids. We didn't do anything just to reach out to the Russians when they'd blown up their children. Has anyone ever seen the Russian monument to the victims of 9/11? Anyone even know about it? They built a huge monument in New Jersey right across from where the buildings were, where the towers were, right where they were. And there's this huge teardrop with a reflection of the World Trade Center on it. One of their great artists did this. No one's ever heard about that. We didn't reach out at all when their kids were blown up. And I remember calling Condi Rice. Now I know Condi because I worked with her in the Reagan White House. I said, Condi, this is a great opportunity now. We need George W. Bush to go to Russia, stand right next to Putin, and pledge to the people of Russia that we are going to stand shoulder to shoulder with the Russian people and defeat this horrible radical Islamic threat that murders children. And Condi's answer was, no way. No way is the president going to do that. Stuck in the Cold War. Stuck in the Cold War. All right? We got to get over that. And the fact is, the president, this president, I don't know where the heck he's coming from. I mean, I saw him yesterday. You must have heard that. He was coming down to give a speech to the Marines, and I went there to greet him because it was Orange County and Camp Pendleton, and right next to our district. So as he just stopped for a few minutes to talk to, how about this, Daryl Isa and myself, right? And anyway, I told him, I said, I was raised in a Marine family, and I want to thank you for taking your time to come here and thank the Marines and the Marine families for the sacrifices they've been making. And Daryl said, this is my district and Dana's district. And I said, yeah, my district is up the coast just a little bit here in Orange County, best surfing beaches in the United States. And he goes, I actually, I was raised in Hawaii. And I didn't want to say, were you born in Hawaii? I didn't do that. So maybe I should have. Yeah. And I just says, and he says, but I came out here to California and I got in the water here, and he says, it was so cold. And I said, Mr. President, we have cold water, but you have to worry about the sharks back in Washington. So anyway, that was that. But the bottom line is he's canceled this thing with Putin, okay? And he's canceled because they gave asylum to this Edward Snowden. Okay, as I say, I don't think that's such a big deal. I mean, let's put it this way. It's kind of ironic, don't you think, that you have a Russian leader giving asylum to a person who is squealing that their government has too much surveillance on their people, and and that we've got a president who's canceling now the visit because this guy Putin is sliding back into Cold War ways, like using the bureaucracy against their political enemies. Or any of those number of other things that maybe Mr. Putin isn't doing them that our own president is. And anyway, we know about the IRS, and we know about the misuse of the FBI and all of these people. So with that said, tomorrow morning, I could say it another way, but all heck will break loose when I say that Snowden wasn't such a bad guy, and Putin is somebody we should try to nurture as our friend and try to bring him in as a friend rather than trying to label him a bad guy and not to have anything to do with him. Those things you can hear now. I don't know how much longer you want me to take. There's a lot of things coming up. What I'll make. Okay, what do you want me to do? How long do you want me to talk, and what do you want me to do?
I want you to talk till 8:30.
Okay.
You got a long time.
All right.
Would you tell us a little bit about Benghazi and what's the latest?
All right.
We seem to see a lot in the news about that, especially on Fox, but we'd like to hear it from you.
I got to tell you something that I can't tell you. I have been doing a lot of investigating into Benghazi, and I've been very involved in this whole effort with my background, and I know a lot of people who know people. And there's just a lot of things that I can't tell you that I think when they break, it's going to be, it could well bring down President Obama. Yeah. Let me just say that when we ended up with, you have this attack, our ambassador there is being attacked. I have spoken to most all of the players that we could get to. Now we know that all the people who were actually there have been hidden throughout the world so that Congress can't talk to them. This cover-up and stonewalling of all the questions we've asked indicates there is a malicious effort on the part of the president to hide a wrongdoing. And I think the wrongdoing is the following. We will find out that the president personally made the decision that there was not, because they never tell us where he was. They don't tell us where he was when this was going on. And there's an attack on one of our ambassadors ongoing, and the president is up there, and they're not letting him in on the conversation. If that is true, we deserve to kick that guy's butt out right now for not being involved. But he probably was, and probably the word came that we can send in a military team to try to rescue our ambassador, but we don't know who exactly we're up against, and that we might lose the team that goes in to rescue him. And I think what we're going to find out, and the reason why they were lying about it all along, was because I believe, again, this is this is after looking into it, this is what I believe. I can't tell you I can prove everything, because this is the only thing that makes sense, is that the president was talking then to his top people, probably including Hillary, said, wasn't there a time when a rescue mission went bad and a president lost his election? And thus, Jimmy Carter losing the election gave this president, who is only interested in power, basically the personal, that was what did it for him. Well, we're not going to risk my presidency on a rescue mission that may or may not succeed. And I think that's what we're talking about. And we have, here's where, you hear these people go, and in the beginning they were going, of course, it was a movie, it was rage over a movie, total fraud, total lie, we know that. And the president and all of his top staff were engaged in lying directly to the American people about that for over a week. But he, we also see that well, I don't know, there's just, I have been investigating this. There's a whole other half that I can't talk to you about. That's all I can tell you. But I can tell you, it doesn't make this president look very good. So, okay.
I'll save you on that. Thank you for sharing that. Tell us a little bit about the NSA and what are the next steps? I mean,
okay.
How are we going to put the cat back in there, put the genie back in the bottle?
Well, I did one last point on Benghazi, and that is the excuse for not sending the team was what? It was, oh, this whole thing was over in 2 hours. Now, I'm right there with the top military people who are telling me that, okay? Well, we've studied this. It was over in 2 hours. We could never have gotten there in time. How did they know it was going to be over in 2 hours? They didn't know that. They could have gone on for a day and a half. You had 2 SEALs up on top of that roof. And by the way, that is something that wasn't part of anybody's calculation. Those guys ran over there, and I have submitted legislation insisting that they be given the Congressional Gold Medal. And so don't let anybody say we couldn't have done anything. We could have at least launched it, and if it was all over, they could have recalled that mission. So with that said, and now you want me, how do we get the genie back in the bottle once we have now a huge number of government employees out putting together a system that's going to be tracing every phone call that we make for the rest of our lives? We've got to have a revolt. That's what we have to have. The only way to put the genie back in the bottle is to have a revolt on this. And we've got to tell, and you're going to, and by the way, you're going to be the ones who are going to have to do it, because it's the Republicans who are more inclined to fight for this, and it was pretty well divided. There was divided. We had about 40% of the Republican members voted not to permit the NSA to do this. I was one of those votes, but
our phone calls, it's our emails as well.
Emails, phone calls helped out tremendously, but we've got to put our Republican colleagues on notice. If you are going to be in favor, we are in favor of little government and more liberty. Less government and more liberty, okay? And if you become if you just become the candidate of efficient government, it can also be oppressively efficient. And we don't support that. And you got to be very adamant with our fellow Republicans on that, because you see that happen all the time. They're going to protect us right into slavery, and et cetera. How to put it in? All of us have got to stand together and with one loud voice say, no way. And the next presidential candidate, we've got to make sure that he knows that the will of the Republican people here is not more government intrusion into our lives.
If I heard him correctly, he said that all those that want to revolt should be over here after the meeting. Tell us a little bit about the IRS. I guess they didn't do anything wrong. That's what I'm hearing in the papers, the news, and not only that, nobody's been canned. They're still all getting paid and everything. So is that a dead deal, or what's happening there?
Nobody's getting canned on any of these scandals. That's probably one of the worst scandals of the scandals. And, you had, of course, the lady, our ambassador to the UN, and you can say she got canned from the UN by being made the national security advisor to the president. I mean, give me a break. None of these people have. And what we're finding out now, and we do, Darrell Issa is working hard, but he's got a limited budget over there at his committee, and that's his charge, is to be investigating a lot of these things. And we are getting information that, well, I would have sent out a lot more subpoenas and been a lot tougher, but, Darrell is being very systematic, and that's the way he is. And that's okay if he's committed to being systematic, but also just unrelenting. Being systematic and unrelenting is okay. Being systematic and giving up halfway because you've got so many stone walls in front of you is not the way to go. But we have, for example, identified that there were a huge number of visits between executives and appointees with the Internal Revenue Service and going to the White House for meetings. I worked in the White House for 7 years. The IRS is a civil service organization. It is not a political organization. The people who run the IRS almost never go to the White House in any other administration, and apparently there was like 18 I don't have the exact number, but a large number of trips by the leadership of the IRS just prior and during the early stages of the last election. So, I mean, do we have some evidence that that? And of course, then we have people who are being asked questions about various issues. And first of all, if you can find them, if you can get them to come someplace, we request documents. They don't give us anything. They do a lot of their work on emails, which is illegal. You cannot do public business on something that is not public. And so you've got all of this stuff going on, and the news media doesn't seem to be outraged. The only time if we're going to succeed, we've got to be the people stimulating the outrage in this. And whether it's the IRS or any of these other scandals, and of course, remember, our Attorney General was censored by the Congress. How many attorney generals have ever been censored by the United States House of Representatives? And so we've got people taking the Fifth Amendment. I'm not going to answer that because it might incriminate me as I might have committed a crime. It would incriminate me, so I'm taking the Fifth. People who do that, should they keep their jobs in government? Absolutely not. Either you should be answering the questions, and if you can't answer the questions because it might in some way prove that you've broken the law, you shouldn't be in your job. So we haven't seen any of this from this administration at
all. Just a side note there. I personally would like to start having, he said that we the people have to make the IRS thing happen. The media's not going to do it for us. We should have rallies once a month in front of the IRS place with our local elected officials coming down and speaking to us about liberty and freedom and the Constitution, and letting Orange County know that we're opposed to what the IRS is doing and the way they're overhanded. And I'm looking for a couple volunteers. If you want to get involved in something like that, if you want to make it happen, we need some help. We can't do it we can't do everything, so we need some help. So look me up afterwards. Now, I understand that there's been some talk about defunding or delaying Obamacare. Remember Ann Cole talked about Tea Party Patriots? They're doing a lot of work for you guys behind the scenes. They put out a poll about verbiage, but what sounds good and what doesn't sound good. And we found out that delaying Obamacare, there's about an 80% of the population wants to delay it. When you start saying defund, then it drops down to about 55, 60%. So when we talk about getting rid of Obamacare, let's delay it right now. Whatever that means, it means the same thing, but we used to use different verbiage because the verbiage sounds better. So talk to us about what's happening there.
Okay. Well, did anyone read Charles Krauthammer's column about our approach to this battle? How many of you like Charles Krauthammer? Okay. So, okay, good. He is my favorite columnist because he really is principled. He's really a tough guy, and but he's also very pragmatic. And his column basically stated the truth that we all have to recognize. The Republican Party controls 1/3 of the decision-making process in terms of changing law. We represent a control of the House of Representatives. A bill has to be passed by the House in order to become a bill, okay, in order to become legislation and a law. But it also has to have a vote by the Senate, and has to be approved by the Senate, and the president's signature, which is just as powerful as all the votes in the House of Representatives, because it's 435 votes in the House of Representatives equal the president's one signature. Because if he does not sign and vetoes it, that will not become law unless it comes back and is then passed by 2/3 of the House and the Senate. Okay, now, does anyone believe that this president is going to sign any legislation whatsoever that repeals Obamacare? It won't. He won't, because it's his only accomplishment in his entire presidency, and he won't do that. Does anyone think the Senate will pass a defunding of Obamacare? No. Well, people who are then saying you should tie it to the continuing resolution and force them to do it. They will not do that. And Krauthammer was very clear about that, and I agree with him totally. It will not, tying this to the continuing resolution, will not result in Obamacare being defunded. Now, it is possible, and they will never agree to totally defund Obamacare. However, it is very clear to anybody in Washington that the whole system is going much slower than what the liberal Democrats thought it was going to take and do to get Obamacare in place. So thus, we may be able to strike a deal that with Obamacare that we will pass a continuing resolution if he agrees to delay it for a certain period of time. That is possible that he would sign. Now, if we just go about it that we're going to say, no, we're going to totally defund it, it's got to be defunded, or we're going to close down government. Let me take a little bit of a poll. We'll have questions afterwards, so that's fine. Let's take a poll here. If indeed we decide that we can close down the government in order to insist and try to pressure Obama into signing and pressure the Senate into passing this, but we'd have to just to give it a try, that it would be worth closing down all of the major elements of our government. Well, that's what if you have it on a continuing resolution, that means that the government is can't spend any money to send there's a group of about 10% of the government employees who would then be considered essential to life and et cetera. that wouldn't be affected. Everybody else would be, don't come in. Don't come into the office today. For example, your post office, the immigration service, the IRS, maybe we don't want any of those people to come in anyway. But the fact that it would also mean the people in the Social Security Agency, the people in the air traffic controllers who control that, all of these people are the bureaucracy dealing with those, with any government service would then be given a notice, you don't come in, because this is now, there is no money being spent by the government. Now, how many would prefer us to give it a try and to basically close those operations down, or with the idea that we're going to force him, we're going to put pressure on them to actually eliminate Obamacare? There's the other strategy, which is say that demand that we delay it, which seems to me to be a strategy as well, but this is just the first one. Who would want us to actually make that stand on a continuing resolution?
Right now, brother.
Okay, all right.
Shut it down.
All right, so that's about 20% of the people here want that. How many would say no to that because we'd alienate a lot of people or whatever? Okay, it's about the same, actually.
The IRS people that are enforcing Obamacare.
Well, there's,
Fund everything except that. That's why they
you would, frankly, the one good thing about the closing down the government is that all the IRS people would not be coming in. And so, and not just the ones in Obamacare. But anyway, that's what we're going to be facing. I will tell you my, any theory that I was there when we closed government last time, and that's what got Bill Clinton reelected as far as I'm concerned. And Krautheimer was there as well. That's his analysis. But I think that taking a stand on delaying Obamacare might have a chance of success.
But he wants it delayed. Doesn't he want it delayed until after the election in 2014? He wants it delayed.
Yeah, well, if he wants the delay, well, then we would, that's a good thing to give him. Look, the bottom line is this. Obamacare did pass its law. To change the law, you have the president's signature and the Senate. Whatever you do, if you don't think you're going to get that, it is doing nothing more than alienating people in order to get some. And by the way, I believe in alienating people. I think fine. I alienate people all the time, but it's only because I'm trying to accomplish a specific thing that's more important than that particular alienation. And just like I say, how many people did I just get upset with me today because I said Putin's a tough guy, but we should make him our friend? I mean, that's going to make me enormous enemies in the right wing. But the fact is, but I think it's important for our country. If we are not going to, if there's no chance of success, what's the chance of it?
You're in the House, brother. You guys did not pass that as a tax. Robert said it's a tax. It should have come back to the House, and you guys could have shut it down.
No, but we could have shut down the government. That once
Not the government,
listen,
Obamacare.
look, once the bill passed,
Under false pretenses. Because of John.
how many other bills have passed because of false pretenses? I'm sorry, the fact is it passed, it is law. To make it different, you think you're going to get the president to sign it.
The Hyde Amendment was law too, and Congress always defunds that one. The Hyde Amendment.
All right.
Since 1976, the Hyde Amendment has not been funded by Congress, and it was a law that was passed.
I would just,
Yeah, but to defund that, you've got to have the president's signature.
It doesn't matter.
The Hyde Amendment, they want, by the way, the Hyde Amendment, just so you'll know, the Democrats didn't want the Hyde Amendment funded.
wait a minute. Everybody just, hang on here a second. Hang on. We're trying to have an intelligent conversation. We're trying to learn and inform. By yelling and shouting your personal opinions is not going to get us anywhere. And I would just ask you to hold that until later on, and you can talk to the congressman. He'll be here for a while. So just let's get his opinion and on these different things. I'll I was going to come back and just follow up with that. You know, the takeover of 1/6 of our economy by the government is serious business. And that's the first step into socialism, or the next step into socialism and into communism. And we've got, at some point in time, we've got to make a stand. And it seems like there's some young bucks in Congress that want to do the right thing. And I was surprised that 25% of you, he said 25% of you would say, no, don't shut down the government. And so you're divided as a group.
And this is, and you're about as conservative as they get in anybody's congressional district.
So let's just hold the questions. But
Okay.
at what point do we make the stand and right is right? That's I
Okay.
address that a little bit.
Well, it's you want to make, as Charles Krauthammer said, what you want to do is make tough stands that take things in the right direction that you are able to accomplish. If you set something out that will insist that the president eat crow and sign away his one accomplishment, that ain't going to happen. So you got to set your goal on something that you can actually achieve. And as I say, the delay is something. I'm not sure what else that they'd have. Maybe if it would be an agreement. By the way, we had this sequester, right? Okay. We had that sequester, which by the way was only $100 billion at a time when the deficit was $1 trillion. That wasn't so big, but that was like pulling teeth. But if we can get more of compromises on specific spending and actually can achieve that, I think it would be much better to try to go to the point that you can really achieve something and make that demand rather than making a demand that will end up, if we do end up closing the government, well, we'll be blamed for it. And probably when you figure that only 25% of the people here were willing to do that, our friends and neighbors will probably kick our butts out of office, and we'll have nobody to do that.
October 1st, we're done.
I think
the entitlements kick in October 1.
I think the questions that a lot of you have on your mind is that the president has already said that he can't really roll this thing out, and he wants to not make it an employer mandate. He wants to make it an individual mandate. And that's wrong on a lot of different...
That's what they did for the 2012 elections.
Sir,
Why are we giving
sir,
you that cover for
sir,
2014?
Sir, thank you. So, you know, what can we do to just slow down the individual? Because if he doesn't sign up the individuals, the whole thing falls apart. The insurance companies are going to bail out, because you know who's signing up right now with the insurance companies, don't you? The people that need kidney transplants. You know, those are the ones that are signing up. It's not my son and your grandchildren. They're not signing up. So if he can't force those people to sign up on the individual mandate, then his program falls apart. So what can we do there to slow it down or stop it?
Well, here's your problem. Corporate America, you know, sometimes they make good decisions, but about half the time they're on the wrong side. And I think President Obama has made his deals with corporate America, and you're going to find that a lot of people who've got good health care coverage are going to lose it because the corporation they work for will have sold out. And same way they do with China and a lot of other things. So listen, I will have to tell you, I am the Foreign Affairs Committee and I'm on the Science Committee, and I know more about the intricacies of those than I do about the healthcare system. But obviously the healthcare system is something that affects about 16% of our economy, so it's huge. And I'm going to try my best to make sure that we delay Obamacare. I will, at this point, unless I think there is a chance of success, which I don't believe there is, now, someone convinced me otherwise. They couldn't convince Charles Krauthammer, and he's a pretty smart guy, that would have any chance of success if you close down the government, meaning if you say no continuing resolution, thus the government functions have got to stop. That would probably result in more Democrats being elected more Obama people being elected rather than less. So that's my position on that. I'd like to talk one or two more issues, and then we'll go into.
Great.
Yeah.
Why is Washington excused from being a part of Obama?
Actually, you're wrong. Members of Congress are just the opposite. Whoever is spreading this rumor, by the way, that members of Congress have their own health care system, total baloney. I am in the same retirement system and the same health care system as every other postal worker or whoever it is who works for the government, air traffic controller, you name it. We are all in exactly the same system, both health care and retirement, except when they passed the Obamacare, Grassley put an amendment in that members of the House of Representatives cannot be like every other government employee, and basically we are being forced off of the system of every other government employee now. And we have to go into the Obama whatever abyss out there, which I find to be very distasteful, being the father of three, and but that's the only thing that they've done about Congress is less, not more. So whoever has told you Congress gets free health care and they get their full retirement after 2 or 3 years, it's a total lie. Don't believe what that person's telling you. They don't know what they're talking about. One or two other issues, and this is in about 10 minutes there's going to be a couple TV cameras here because I was attacked today by Barbara Boxer. All right. And yes, what a horrible thing to be attacked by Barbara Boxer. And she was noting that there are fires. There are fires in our country and in our state, and they're due to global warming. And the people should understand that they've got nitwits like Congressman Rohrabacher who don't even believe that mankind is causing the climate to change. And so anyway, they're going to have me refute Barbara, or at least play a side-by-side. Just so you'll know, global warming is a total fraud, and it's being designed because what you've got liberals who get elected at the local level want the state government to do the work and let them make the decisions. Then at the state level, they want the federal government to do it. And at the federal government, they want to create global government to control all of our lives. That's what their game plan is. It's step by step by step, more and bigger control over our lives by higher levels of government. And global warming is simply that strategy in spades. They are, just say, there are natural, I remember I endorsed Arnold, which was my big mistake, but in the beginning it looked like he was going to be a good governor, but then he gave into this global warming stuff, and I remember we had a real rift between us for about a year where we just didn't talk, and then and he was doing all this global warming stuff, and he came to see, I'll never forget it, he came to see the California delegation, and I'm sitting there and Arnold's walking by me, and I said, Arnold, did you hear about the melting ice caps and the retreating ice caps? Why, Dana, oh yes, I know about the ice caps, all right. I'm very surprised, Dana, that you know about the ice caps melting and retreating. And I said, Arnold, I'm talking about the ice caps on Mars. Oh, bam, he's gone. Yeah, the ice caps on Jupiter's moons and Mars are following the same trend line as ours. So does that indicate that it's our human activity that's creating a global change in the climate? Or does it indicate there is something that affects Mars and the Earth? It's called the sun. And so anyway, these people, we've got read Eisenhower's farewell address. Everybody knows about his farewell address warned us of the military-industrial complex. By the way, there's something to worry about the military-industrial complex. I mean, you've got people who are willing just to spend money to build weapons to make money, and then to build more weapons and to make money. And we need the people, that's a profit-making industry. We got to understand that. This isn't just patriotism, it's making money. So we got to be serious about that. But that was that much of his farewell address. Twice that length of his farewell address is him warning us about the coalition between scientists and the government. Read it. It's a very enlightening, and Eisenhower had some real insights into when you have the government making policy by having the scientists get government grants for their science, you're going to be in real trouble. And just read that. That's what's happened to us. We have eased into that where so much money has gone to science research projects, and they have used it to intimidate people who disagree with their attempt to frighten all of us into changing our lives and giving our freedom to make our choices on transportation and everything else. No, that's got to be done by a government official who, by the way, probably comes from Nigeria because he's a UN government official and not a US government official. There you go.
Just for everybody's knowledge, we have what does healthcare reform mean to you? We have these brochures back there, so if you want some additional information, it's an excellent resource. Jeff has provided those for us. I'd like to go on to the next topic, and I know it's a very emotional topic for a lot of you. I personally feel that the conservatives across the country go from the very right, where the law is the law, and let's self-deport illegal immigrants, and there's good people on the right, on the other side, that say, my God tells me that I should take care of my neighbor, I should feed my neighbor, and watch after my neighbor. So they're all good people that have totally different views on immigration. So, and I'm sure you're out there today, so let's respect each other's views as he talks to us about, one, the Senate bill, and where you think that's going, and two, did you hear today that Schumer said that he would take the immigration in bits and pieces? Was he lying to us again?
I've never found a time when I would believe Schumer on anything. But about this, look, I'm a Christian. I don't put it in people's face, shove pies in people's faces. I'm a religious guy, and this is the basis of my belief. But I'm a Christian, and I'm very grateful for all the gifts that God has given me. But I am fully aware that my religious beliefs are things that guide my personal behavior and my standards, and are not things that what you do is superimpose them on others. We are, people say, this is a Christian nation. We are, yes, most of us are Christians, but it is a Christian nation to the degree that the vast majority of people are Christians, but that we believe in tolerating every other religion, and that everybody has a right to run their lives and to worship God as they see fit. If that's what you mean by a Christian nation, I just think it's freedom of religion when they ask me about it. Well, if you have a religious conviction that we should be helping our neighbors, I think that's a wonderful thing to do. But I don't believe that there's any justification in any of the Christian books that I've read, including the Bible, that says that you will help your neighbor by taxing somebody else and giving it to your neighbors. In fact, the Good Samaritan, I don't believe the Good Samaritan said, my gosh, I got to get a hold of the bureau here and make sure they tax these people. And in fact, I'm going to take this poor guy who's out here on the road, and I'm going to take him to the hotel, and I'm going to insist the hotel take care of him. No. The Good Samaritan paid for all of those expenses out of his own pocket. And that's what makes a better society, by the way, is that if you really, and it's like these people, early on in my career, about 15 years ago, There was a guy who was brought here from El Salvador, and he had leukemia. And a church group brought him here. A church group brought him here. And they were so proud of themselves that they brought him here. Well, that wasn't an act of charity. In the end, the guy, they put him on a government program which cost us over $1 million out of the fund that goes to our people. That wasn't charity on the part of that church. And I told someone, I said, look, if you would have taken care of that man yourself, you would have sold your cars or lived a little less lifestyle because we're going to save him, they would have had an award from me, and I'm sure Jesus Christ himself would have welcomed them into heaven for that wonderful, wonderful act of kindness and Christian charity. Christian charity is not advocating government programs. It's as simple as that. So for those of us who are coming from that background, that's number one. Number two, there is nothing wrong or anti-Christian about taking care of your family and your neighbors and the people you know, rather than taking care of the stranger, especially if the stranger is from another country. The bottom line is we Americans represent every race, every religion, every ethnic group that there is on this planet. Every single one of the groups of people on the planet are represented here in the United States of America. So what holds us together? Yes, hopefully a commitment to those ideals that our founding fathers set down, but also hopefully that we love the American family, that we know that we are a part of the American family, and that those people left behind in the old country are not part of the American family. There is nothing wrong whatsoever about caring for your own family rather than dissipating the funds for them and giving it to someone who you don't know, or someone from another country. There's nothing wrong with that, and that's when we should make sure. I think it is immoral for us to take people who've been paying into the system all of their lives, veterans who've risked their lives, other people who have committed their lives to decent living and paid enormous taxes, etc. I think it is sinful to take those Americans and diminish what they're going to be able to enjoy now in order to give it to people who have just come across the border illegally. And let me know, legalizing the status of those people who have come here illegally. Legalizing their status will do nothing more than bring millions and millions and millions more. And and again, we have a business community who you may or may not know, who has been basically trying to see what they can do to hurt me politically, one way or the other. I mean, they're out to get me. The business community wants cheap labor. They want cheap labor. And as far as I'm concerned, them bidding down the price of labor is not what free enterprise is all about. And it's not what America is all about. We should be concerned at a time of high unemployment, we should be concerned about our own people earning their living rather than directing the limited funds that we have towards people who've come here illegally. And thus, well, by the way, you know this guest worker program that they want? They were including construction workers. Now tell me, can't we pay our construction workers a decent wage? We can't find construction workers who will do that? No way. The construction workers used to vote Republican, for Pete's sakes. Their unions were on the other side, but people who were plumbers and roofers and carpenters, they would vote for us. And here we are betraying them and expecting they're going to continue voting Republican. And by the way, the Mexican-American community, just so you'll know, they know this. They know that the people, if we bring in millions of more people, it's their jobs that are going to be taken. It's the quality of their children's education that's going down. It's their health care that are going to be the first impacted. So this idea that we're going to get Mexican-American votes by granting illegals a legal status, and you know the guesstimate on that, They say there's only 11 million illegals. Believe me, there are 20 million illegals in this country, at least, or more. And after they do that, you know what's going to happen? Then you have family reunification. You legalize their status, family reunification. The study was done by Heritage, and what did it show? When all is said and done, after 10 years, it cost us $6 trillion and 50 million new Americans here, all poor and all uneducated. You think that's going to change our country? You think the equilibrium, the political equilibrium that we have now, that prevents us from having total socialization of our economy, that'll be gone. So I think that number one, let's face it, there's two things I'm going to warn you about. Number one is all illegal immigrants are not Mexicans. Be very 40% of the illegals that have come in have come in on visas and overstayed their visas. That's why you have Chinatowns popping up all over the country. And let me just note this. Mexicans have a proud culture. They are a wonderful people. I lived with a Mexican family when I was young, and I've got nothing but admiration for them and their culture. But it is a different culture than what we have in the United States. It's a good culture. And this idea that we just are going to conglomerate all this together, they don't want it, and we shouldn't want it either. We should be proud of our culture, and they should be proud of theirs, and we should be best friends if we can possibly be. With that said, that's the illegal immigration, and I will fight that, and I will not support any candidate that favors legalizing the illegals.
What is the House going to do? Are they behind you, or what are we going to see out of the House in September?
No bill.
Well, I'm not Boehner's favorite anymore, you know. So, I basically came out, and I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. It's like saying Snowden really didn't do us a disservice when he warned us our government was creating this new surveillance system on all of us. You know, like I sort of think that's true, you know, and sort of like, and I said and it went, you know, that's going to go viral tomorrow. But Boehner, and I said with Boehner, I was in an interview, I just said, look, if he presents a bill to the House of Representatives and it passes and it's legalized the illegal immigrants bill, and that bill is passed and with a minority of Republican support, if a majority of the Republicans in the House are opposed to it, but he's brought in Democrat votes to pass it, he should step down because he's no longer our leader. And so anyway, he got that, so I'm not his favorite anymore. What's going to happen? I think that we are going to have, and I didn't see Schumer's remarks today, Boehner's strategy, which I think is a decent strategy, is let's go segment by segment by segment about immigration reform, because just the idea of making illegals legal is not the only idea of immigration reform. I'm actually in favor of reforming the system in other areas. It's just that all the rest has been a front, a smokescreen for legalizing the illegals. But there are things, for example, we need to restructure our immigration system so that the people who are coming in, by the way, we should be proud, very proud that our country has the most open and wonderful, benevolent immigration system in the world. We permit more legal immigration into our country than all the other countries of the world combined. And so we don't have to apologize about anything when it comes to immigration. Well, we should make sure that that legal immigration, that million people we have come in, is structured so that the people who are coming in are people who produce wealth rather than consume wealth. And what we've got, I will tell you all know my wife Rhonda, who is with us tonight. Rhonda, you can raise your hand there. Rhonda and I were down in El Salvador? It was El Salvador. It was an offshore board meeting that I had to go to. And, whoa, yes, there you go. So anyway, we were coming home, and we're waiting for the plane from El Salvador that goes directly into LAX. And about half an hour before the plane was they opened the door for people to go on the plane, out come the wheelchairs. About 20 infirmed elderly people being wheeled into that airplane. Now, again, I have a heart. I love old people. But I'm sorry, we have to take care of our own seniors, and no one can tell me that those 20, and that's every time there's an airplane, you got these people coming in, and you can't tell me that that's not consuming the resources that should go to our own seniors. And those people now are consuming wealth that all the people have worked their whole lives trying to build in our country. And so let's reform the system so that the people who are coming in, at least a much higher share, are people who are younger, who are educated, who have something to contribute to our economy, and certainly not criminals, etc. So that way we can reform the system. That's a good reform. We can reform our system. Once someone who comes here legally as part of our legal system, they have to wait for years at times to become a U.S. citizen. Let's facilitate someone who's come here legally, obeyed our laws, has something to contribute. Let's facilitate it that they can then become citizens. And we want them to be citizens if they're good people. And we've already brought them in under a legal immigration system. So there's all kinds of things like that we can do. Businessmen are telling me, oh man, well, we need these skills for this and that. Well, you know, we're not going to bring them in with a special program, but if they're going to have people are going to send kids here to learn science, let's say this right off the top. I'm not saying increasing the number of immigrants, but let's mark off a number of those immigrant slots that we have in our current system and say it's going to go to kids who have come here and earned science degrees. And so when they get their degree, they can get a green card and work here. I think that's fine, just so long as we're not increasing the overall number of people coming in, and instead we're increasing the quality of the people who are coming into the country. So we can do all those things. And what's going to happen? I don't know. All I can tell you is their real goal is to legalize those people who are here illegally so that they can totally restructure and change the American way of life and America's government by establishing a totally new power dynamic in our society. That's their real goal, and we got to stop them when they do that.
What's the chance of that happening?
Dana,
Don't know.
would you like to see if we can field a couple questions?
Sure. And did those newsmen come in yet, by the way? They're outside?
What I'd like
Okay, I'll be
to
out in a few minutes. I've got to go answer the questions for Barbara Boxer. Can they wait? Can they wait? Okay, they can wait. Okay, we got 10 minutes or so, 15 minutes. Go
What I'd
ahead.
like to do is have you raise your hand if you have a question. Jim, do you have a question?
No,
Okay.
I'm too.
Jim's my next door neighbor, so he came with me today because he wanted to hear the congressman, and he had said he was going to ask some questions, and I think Dana probably
I
answered
don't
them
want
all.
to be negative.
You don't want to be negative. Okay. I'm gonna start with the lady right there.
I want to thank you, first of all, for all you do for the veterans. For all you do for the veterans. But I have a question on immigration. What makes them think that they're going to process these people that are out on visas overstayed? And they don't do that, so you get new laws, and they're not going to work on those either.
Yeah, she's asked me about the visa thing and what makes anybody think that people will obey the visa law. There are ways that we can set up a program that we know if someone has left the country. We do not now know if someone who has come in with a visa has left. And we can set up a system that with our computer systems that we've got today, there are ways that we can handle that. And that should be number one priority. People going to Switzerland, if somebody is overstaying their visa, they are out of that country. And there's no reason why we can't have as an efficient law enforcement and immigration enforcement as that.
Bill, did you have a question?
Yes. Okay, go ahead.
Both bills.
I have friends who like to go hiking. They were hiking in the mountains above, the mountains between here and Riverside County. They said major construction projects, and they were speculating what could they be. One of their speculations was that it could be possibly a detention camp like the Japanese of World War II, but that might be totally crazy, I don't know. I don't know if you know any of that.
I mean, they found a detention camp? Or they're building one?
They didn't know what it was, but that was one of their speculations as a possibility.
I don't know anything about a detention camp. I will say this, that which goes into the immigration thing, which I don't see any reason why prisoners can't pick fruit and vegetables and things like that. So that's not part of your question, but I wanted to make sure everybody understands that. I get attacked for that position too. But now you can put ankle bracelets, and half the people in prison are not there for violent crimes. And by the way, I'm going to say one other thing that you're going to learn that's controversial. I got to add. I'm here to let you know, so no one can say that Dana Rohrabacher is skirting the tough issues and not telling you where we agree, disagree. But I think it's absolutely absurd to spend our limited law enforcement dollars, our limited dollars for incarceration and judicial procedures on people who smoke marijuana. That is absolutely absurd to me. And frankly, I know that there's probably a large segment of people here who disagree with that, but we don't need to have the government out chasing somebody for selling a baggie of marijuana when there are people who are being raped and murdered and robbed, and we've got all these gangs running around. By the way, the gangs end up being financed by the sale of drugs. So let's let the pharmacy sell it.
After all, they smoke nicotine.
Let's tax it, let's tax it.
Yeah, that's right.
Let's tax the heck out of it. Pat, you want to?
What time is it now?
It's 8:15.
Okay, I tell them I'll be out in 5 minutes. We got 5 more minutes because.
I read that Paul Ryan has said that Obamacare is an entitlement, and therefore you cannot vote not to fund it. That entitlements are funded, but that the government in general is not until you can defund optional expenses. Can you comment on that? Because he's saying that you just have to let it run itself out. You have to let it delay, because there's no way not to fund it.
Well, if we had both houses of Congress and the presidency, there would be a way to defund it. There is no doubt. Yeah, there is no doubt if we had both houses of Congress and the presidency, we could defund Obamacare, and we should. And in fact, that's our major goal should be finding a presidential candidate with that kind of guts and getting senators elected who are of that frame of mind and keeping the House. Yeah, we can defund it that way, and we should. We can't defund it now without a vote of those other two groups. That's.
It can't be defunded because it is an entitlement, which is a slightly different way of looking
Well,
at it.
I don't care if you call it entitlement or not. All I know is that right now you have to have certain bills that are passed that finance various elements of the government, and you can't change that without that formula, without the three branches agreeing. And our founding fathers, by the way, in a parliamentary system, this wouldn't be the way it is. Parliamentary system, Obama would, to be president, prime minister that is, would have a majority in the parliament, and there's only one house. Our founding fathers were very intelligent, and they set up a system where it's very hard to make fundamental change. Unfortunately, what happened when Obama came in, we had the FBI go after Senator Stevens in Alaska and committed an atrocity against democracy and against this wonderful man who had served his country, and they brought him up under false charges, and when and he lost his election by a couple hundred votes, and in fact afterwards they found out that the FBI was keeping the evidence that proved that he was innocent, was keeping that secret. And that one vote was what changed the vote in the Senate on Obamacare and switched it and gave us Obamacare. And thank you, FBI.
They're telling me that the media is putting an end to my meeting. I would hope that a half a dozen of you, no more than that, would go out with Dana and make sure the media stays on message. And you can do that. You can be a little bit less polite out there. With that, I would really like to thank Dana for coming tonight. I think it's